Welcome. Thank you for joining me. It is just me, Amie, today. Alana is taking a much needed time with family. And it's funny when when Alana and I are planning podcast episodes and we know that the other one won't be in town to record on that week, we're both like, all right, I'll record without you. It's just not fun for us to record individually and probably not as fun for you all either. But the show must go on, as they say. I was actually recording an episode with Sarah Morales on her podcast the other day, and she wanted me to come talk about self rejection. It was such a good conversation with her and I. You can hear, maybe I'll put the link in the show notes, but her Deconstructing Gaslighting podcast is awesome. And that episode airs, I think, February. But I was thinking about you listeners who are navigating betrayal, navigating divorce after betrayal. And I just wanted to expound a little bit on this term self rejection because I feel like it's not really talked about and certainly not mentioned as much. But I have found this really instrumental in my own healing, but also with a lot of my clients when we explore how we are self rejecting. It's a really big piece. That's why I included it in my intimacy within self paced course. It's like that prerequisite to vulnerability and and intimacy, not just within our for ourselves, but with others. I also teach how this shows up for my divorce clients who are trying to navigate another relationship and want it to be healthy. So they're leaning into that world of dating again. But wherever you're at in your journey, when you've experienced betrayal at the deepest level of attachment, the fear of being rejected is so real. It's often paralyzing. I see self rejection show up in really sneaky ways that we don't even realize when we're doing it. And as discussed with Sarah, it really plays into self gaslighting as well. When you've lived in that shadow of self-rejection, it's like you're breathing through a straw. Like you plugged your nose and you put a straw in your mouth and you're only breathing air through that straw. You're only experiencing a fraction of air. You're only experiencing a fraction of life's potential in self-connection and in that relationship security when you're self-rejecting. Self-rejection is also a false sense of safety because it seems to promise that we're never going to get hurt again, but really it's blocking the healing power of your self acceptance. When you experience betrayal and you've become used to perhaps making yourself small, and now you're limiting the space that you have a God given right to take up, you're missing out now on that beauty that you can offer the world that you, in at least the way I think, are meant to show the world your beauty, your authentic true self. But it's hidden through self rejection and you stay small. I know I learned from a really young age that in order to avoid conflict, it was best not to have needs, especially big ones that might limit maybe approval from others, especially primary caregivers. That is a very real attachment fear as a young one that many of you might relate to. And if it's not in family of origin, then you certainly may have learned this in your relationship when your partner was hiding addiction and sexual acting out behaviors. So, again, to avoid conflict or setting them off, you reject perhaps your voice, your opinions, your thoughts, your feelings in order to keep that peace. And this can, over time, really lead to a deep loss of self, sense of who you are. I also have seen self rejection show up as over accommodating and trying to please your partner or please others. So, as you alter your own behavior to please another person, you're misaligning with your authentic self. Perhaps you're misaligning with your own values to maintain peace and connection. You're self rejecting. I remember in a sneaky way or like a tricky way that this can show up because a lot of you might be like, "No, I'm not rejecting my values. He's rejecting his values." So for example, one way that I misaligned with my values in my relationship was I self-rejected. I rejected my value of being equal, my value of being viewed as an equal partner. I didn't recognize at the time that that's what I was doing, but ultimately, that's what I was doing. I was rejecting my own value and belief that in a relationship, my voice is equal. I used to reject myself first by rejecting my body. My body isn't good enough to be wanted by my husband. That's why he wants someone else's body. That's why he wants to look at other bodies because mine isn't good enough. Now, not everyone has the experience of their partner actually verbalizing how they don't like certain aspects of their body, like I did. That certainly makes it difficult to not self reject. However, verbalizing or not, the acting out behaviors can be interpreted by the betrayed through that self rejecting lens. Now, as Sarah and I talked about in her episode, self rejection can manifest across various domains of our lives. Like it impacts our behavior, our thoughts, our feelings in so many different ways. And so we want to start recognizing these domains. And this is just a crucial part of understanding and addressing those self rejection patterns that you might not be aware of right now. So, like emotional ways that we self reject. I shouldn't be sad. I shouldn't be triggered. I should be feeling happy right now. Social aspects, social domains. I definitely did this where just in my own family or in my religious culture, I rejected my opinion and voice a lot of times speaking up in those different social domains because of what was happening. I felt it was a direct reflection of me. And so I rejected my voice and I didn't share, I didn't speak up, I didn't contribute to those social environments. Intellectual self-rejection, right? I'm stupid, or simply just the thought, I don't know the answer. That's self-rejection because truly you do have the answers. In fact, you're the only one that does have the answers. Now, believing that you can go find the answers isn't self-rejection. But when you feel like I don't have the answers and I can't find them, that is intellectual self-rejection. Physical self-rejection, like I mentioned to you, my experience with rejecting my body, relational, even professional self-rejection. Ever felt imposter syndrome or undervalue yourself at work? Maybe not taking on new challenges because you believe that you're going to fail. And then the spiritual domain, this can really creep up on you as well because maybe you're doubting all of your spiritual beliefs and feeling unworthy in that spiritual connection because you are self rejecting first. So now we're disconnecting from certain spiritual practices or feel lost in our spiritual identity. When you begin to recognize how this is going to show up and the patterns, then we want to challenge these beliefs. And when you do, you're gradually going to lean into self acceptance in all of these different aspects and domains in your life. So, in my coaching model, the three pillars of self coaching is awareness, acceptance, and agency. I want to go through those and use that as a framework to walk through how you can stop self rejecting. So, let's start with awareness. Like I said, self rejection is really sneaky and silent. And so it silently takes away your happiness and begins to sneakily whisper thoughts of unworthiness. And now this is becoming a barrier to not only your self love and belonging, but your ability to love others. I just want to validate how practicing to become aware of self rejection can be really hard when you're experiencing symptoms of trauma like the brain fog and other PTSD symptoms. It can be really challenging to push forward in seeing into yourself in these patterns, but it really is the crucial first step in the healing process. So, for those in early trauma recovery, start with simple mindfulness practices, deep breathing, meditation to slow your brain and body down. When you slow down, now you can start taking a look and see when you're spinning, why you're spinning and moving so fast. Why are our thoughts racing? Why are we maybe avoiding or numbing out? This is where professional support can also be really helpful because they can help you see when this is showing up. and at your request, then bring to your attention so that you can start becoming aware of those self rejecting patterns. When right now it's just a little too much on your early trauma brain. Now, for those of you who are in more recovery and doing more recovery practices, besides journaling, using self-reflection prompts, for instance, like asking yourself, okay, am I putting my needs last here in this situation or in this conversation? Ask yourself, am I being overly critical or judgmental of myself here in this situation or in this conversation? When you drop into this kind of curiosity to asking yourself these questions, it's going to bring more awareness. You're going to see more how you're showing up. When you reject yourself first, you are inadvertently giving others permission to do the same. And it's just this vicious cycle where that fear of rejection from others becomes the actual creator of your loneliness because you cannot connect with others when underneath is the fear that they're going to reject you. So, this is the irony of self rejection, right? It's that in our quest to avoid pain from others, we are unconsciously creating the deepest wounds upon ourselves. Okay, next, acceptance. This is where most of us get stuck. I will just tell you right now. So give yourself grace and space. I actually divide this pillar into two different sections. So we have foundational acceptance and transformational acceptance. And again, those who are in the beginning stages of trauma, this foundational acceptance might look like accepting that you're vulnerable right now and not in a place to connect with your partner or future partners if you're divorced, or even connect with other like family members, right? People that just, it feels too risky to be vulnerable right now. And that's okay. When we want to avoid being rejected, but also need acceptance so desperately, this is where connecting at all costs happens and ultimately creates more pain and grief. This is not connecting from a place of secure attachment with yourself. So when we lean into our partner, desperate to be seen, heard, loved, or chosen, you're most likely going to end up feeling rejection because in this vulnerable state, you're not seeing things as they really are about the situation, about yourself, or the person. Another foundational acceptance here is accepting that the healing journey is not something that you can outsmart, outrun, or outrighteous. And you can fall into self rejection when you believe that you can checklist your way out of it, believing that something's wrong with you, that all of your love, all of your efforts to help him isn't working. So maybe now you reject your ability to love. Maybe you're not lovable or Christ like enough, self rejection. Now, transformational acceptance here can look like accepting that you are not your trauma and that you're not your emotions and you didn't cause or choose this. Accepting that you cannot control him, his healing, or control if someone chooses to betray you again. When you accept that you didn't cause it, you can't cure it, and you can't control it, you won't reject yourself first. And the reason I have that one in transformational, because that control part is really hard. And that's where a lot of people can get stuck, is because, again, that's really sneaky ways that we don't think we're trying to control, but we are. Maybe we're taking on the role of fixer or helper. And we don't realize that that's actually not something that we can fix or help because, number one, they're not asking for it or choosing into it. So we're trying to force it onto them because ultimately what we're really wanting is for us to be able to feel better. And if they can just do the things, then we'll feel better. But it doesn't work that way. And so when you can really see that, accept that, it's transforming you, it's transforming your thoughts into the next pillar, which is agency. Now, agency is your power to choose. And you didn't choose your trauma, but you do choose how you move forward and how you move through and how you move forward. When you start to criticize how you move through and forward, you're self rejecting. So, agency, choice empowers you to transform that rejecting of the self into self acceptance. And it's so freeing and liberating when you can release that pressure that you're putting on yourself to be better, to be more, when you criticize how you're healing in the journey. How many of you are doing that? How many of you, again, are criticizing maybe the way that you're setting boundaries or not setting boundaries? When you embrace these parts that are challenging or that are still trying to figure it all out and embracing the setbacks that come from just being a freaking human, then you can drop out of that self rejection. But how many times do we entertain thoughts like, you should have seen this sooner? You should have seen it coming. Why didn't you? Or what's wrong with you that you didn't see it? Or you suck at boundaries. This is self rejection and it limits your ability to self accept. Remember, that's where we get stuck in the acceptance, including self acceptance. And you cannot move to that next pillar of agency until we accept, including accepting ourselves exactly where we're at. I'll tell my clients all the time, like they are doers. I have no doubt that women can do hard freaking things and they will get it done. But we skip over this acceptance piece, including self acceptance. And now it limits our ability to choose ourselves, to choose the healing that I know everyone wants. But this is your first time being human. So perhaps a little grace as you navigate one of the most traumatic human experiences. When you stop rejecting parts of yourself, you start discovering that wholeness of your true self. And then you find peace within who you are. And it is the first step in becoming who you were meant to be. And please hear this loud and clear. Overcoming self rejection does not mean becoming perfect. It means recognizing that your imperfections are part and need to be a part of the beautiful, authentic whole. You. Every act of self kindness, every time you practice, it is a victory over those past narratives of self rejection that you have believed for far too long. Now, those in early stages of betrayal trauma healing start by start leaning into this pillar of agency by choosing in the areas of which you have control, your thoughts, your feelings, and your actions. Allow yourself to feel the hard of that. It is okay. Self rejection is when it's hard and you think it shouldn't be hard, or everybody else has this figured out. So what's wrong with me that I don't? Okay, nope. Self acceptance is I am a human for the first time practicing to let go of another human's behaviors. And ouch, it hurts. Another way that you can, in early stages, but of course, everyone can do this, is self care, right? Choosing to self care. And this is crucial here in the first steps. So stop self rejecting. You are not going to reject your need to nourish yourself. Now, those who are further along in the journey, agency here can look like advocating for yourself, clearly communicating requests and boundaries, needs, and then holding the consequences. So, self rejection is when we believe that we're asking for too much or expectations are too high. And then, or you're putting someone out, you're a problem or whatever. And you're believing others when they say that you're mean and or witchy with a B. And so now you're going to hold the consequences of that boundary. That's self rejection. Another way that those of you who are further along in the journey, start cultivating healthy independence. This is where whether or not your partner does his own healing or not, your ability to thrive is not dependent on his choice to heal or not. Self rejection can show up here by believing that you can't do life on your own, or you can't heal or progress if he isn't doing it as well. Notice I didn't say alone, I said life on your own, because on your own means you find other safe, healthy people to support you and help you get what you need and want. stop self rejecting. Again, for those who are navigating your relationship with the one who betrayed, or those who are worried about future relationships, self acceptance is crucial in developing a secure attachment style. It involves recognizing and embracing your own self worth and value. And then this leads to healthier, more secure, interdependent relationships, because that's what we're looking for here. It also helps you see the reality of the other person who is in their relationship, and whether or not they are working on their own secure attachment. So when you practice accepting yourself first, you will less likely tolerate mistreatment and more likely to seek out partners who respect and fulfill your requests and needs as much as possible. And when they can't, they will be willing to try the next time. I did not know that was a thing, but it's a thing. And this really does start with you. When you see yourself different and you see what you're worth, what you can have, what is acceptable to have as a human, and really what's acceptable to you in the relationship that you want, you'll start seeing it and you'll start seeing the mistreatment in it. Those who stop self rejecting, they're going to be more open, more honest, more vulnerable, and then willing to take that healthy risk into intimacy. Everyone wants that intimate connection. Everyone wants to have healthy intimacy. And when you go through betrayal, you realize that what you thought maybe was healthy isn't. And now, like, everything is all up in the air and you don't know what the hell healthy is like anymore. And so, like I tell my clients all the time, and especially my divorce ladies who are like, I don't even want to get into another relationship because I don't even know what healthy looks like. Well, it starts with you becoming healthy. It starts with you becoming open, honest, and vulnerable and willing to risk rejection because they've stopped rejecting themselves, because they know that they cannot control what the other person does or doesn't do in that relationship, but they know how to feel hurt and sad and grief when that other person that they were hoping would choose into that relationship doesn't, because they're not going to reject their emotions of hurt and sad and grief. They're not going to reject their values by holding on to the value of a healthy relationship, and they don't reject themselves by believing that they are unlovable or not worth being loved. Those who stop self rejecting believe in themselves and have their own backs, trusting that they will not abandon themselves first when others do. This is practice, not perfect. And hopefully today, you do have more of a desire to practice. And when you do, seeking approval from others becomes unnecessary when you learn to approve yourself first, because self acceptance is the antidote to self rejection. Whether in your current or future relationships, they can only be healthy as your relationship with yourself, because your relationship with yourself paves the way for those healthy connections, because they're rooted in that mutual respect and genuine love that you've created for yourself. You respect yourself and you genuinely love who you are. And no one can take that away. Self rejection is when we give it away. Hopefully, wherever you're at today, in those pillars of awareness, acceptance, and agency, you have some tools to start practicing to meet you where you're at. Let this term sink in a little bit. Remember, you just need to start with awareness and being more aware of how this is showing up in your life, how your brain is self rejecting, where those beliefs might have come from, and taking your journey one step at a time. As always, thank you for joining me. And I promise Alana will be back next week. See you soon. Okay, those of you who are feeling more ready than ever to take your healing journey up a notch and start seeing all the sneaky ways that you might be self rejecting and not believing in yourself, keeping you from trusting again, loving again, and believing that you really are enough. When support groups have completed their purpose, or maybe therapy is at a halt, group coaching is double coaching and really seeing into your brain things that you didn't know were there, beliefs that are holding you back, keeping you stuck and scared to move forward and thrive. But my signature Believing in You group coaching membership is going to help you do just that. It's going to help you believe in you. To find out if you're ready for that next step, that next level of healing, click the show notes, click the link in the show notes. There are evening and afternoon sessions open now. And for all of you, continue to choose healing, choose recovery, and choose you. Take care, everybody.